Hello, my dear friends. I'm your host, Samantha, and welcome to the Mooncast. How are you today? I hope you're well. As the holiday season is quickly upon us, I thought I would take a moment to talk about creating your own traditions. But first, a quick story. Many years ago, when our children were still young, we still celebrated Christmas. And on Christmas, as is usual, we would spend a lot of time going from family's house to family's house, and that left very little time for us to enjoy the holiday as a family in our own home. One Christmas in particular, we didn't get home until 11 o'clock at night. Our children were tired and hungry, and each of us just a little crabby. A few days later, I spoke to my lover and I said, "Why are we celebrating Christmas anyway? We're not even Christians." And from that point on, we sought out to create our own holiday tradition of Yule. Each Yule, weather permitting of course, we invite our loved ones to our house to share in a feast and merriment. I cook a ham in honor of Frere and his boar, and after we feast, we either have a fire or we all huddle into our living room and pass a mead horn around. The person holding the mead horn is to tell a story, make a toast, sing a song, or any other kind of entertainment that they have prepared for the evening. It is a merry tradition indeed. For sanitary reasons, of course, we don't all drink from the same mead horn and have our own individual drinks. But the symbolism is still there. The person holding the mead horn is responsible for that moment's entertainment. One tradition that our family has been doing for quite a few years is burying apples on Samhain or All Hallows Eve to feed our loved ones on their journey back to the afterlife. I also like to set a single candle to light their way in the western window. This is something that very recently our now grown daughter has expressed a special fondness for. Creating new traditions can be a little daunting. After all, our traditions are traditions for a reason. They're things that we grew up doing and things that we hold a special feeling of nostalgia for. In many ways, we count on those old traditions to usher us through these seasons, and if they aren't there, they can leave us feeling a little empty at times. But one thing I think we fail to remember is that those traditions had to start somewhere, and they had to start with someone. I also feel that it's important to remember that these traditions were created out of what was available and happening at the time of their creation. Lunasa, for example, is typically a festival of wheat, and is when the first sheaves of wheat were cut down into baked bread. In our modern times, we aren't typically growing fields of wheat, but we may still honor the holiday by baking a special bread or even just buying one from the store that we love. Our lives have drastically changed since the beginning of many of our traditions, and I see no fault in working in new elements to those traditions. I feel that in our witchcraft community, many of us get hung up on being authentic, on trying to recreate the past and what was done then. As I've said, in regards to the fields of wheat, many of the practices from the past are just not done today. What matters is how they are symbolized in our modern traditions. Over many years of searching, I found it very difficult to pinpoint one witchcraft tradition that I could belong to or that spoke to me. And because I couldn't find one specific tradition or path that I resonated with, I began to make my own. My practice could be considered very secular, with a dash of a few different traditions and gods here and there. As I've said in past Mooncast, I'm very fond of the Norse pantheons of gods, but even those traditions have been commodified and packaged and translated, and many times in a way that I do not agree with. So I take the elements of those gods and their celebrations, and I add them to my own harvest and planting celebrations throughout the year. While there are some who claim to know exactly how our ancient ancestors practiced these holidays, in many cases, those sources are flawed, incomplete, or left us scratching our heads. But at the core of these practices, specifically the ones that are centered around harvesting and planting, the spirit of the holiday remains the same. In the spring and summer, we plant and work the fields. In the fall, we harvest, and in the winter, we rest. Those are some truths that no matter what path you belong to, remain the same. Recently, I've taken to planning 8 potlucks a year for the 8 spokes of the wheel of the year. Now, not all my friends are pagan, and that's okay. The point of the celebration is just to get together with them, to enjoy each other's company, and to share food. After all, a majority of our ancestors' celebrations were centered around the same idea. One way that you can create your own traditions on these holidays is to prepare certain foods. As I've said, for Yule, I cook a ham. But for the summer, I might do something that involves fresh berries, as berries are in season at the time. Relying on what is seasonally available helps you to connect to the land and to what grows around you. Forgive my ignorance on the subject, but for example, if pineapples are in season during Christmas and you live in Hawaii, why not add pineapples to your celebration? The point is not so much to mirror our ancestors, but to connect with the changing of the seasons into the land. I will say it has taken a lot of thinking and a lot of undoing of my expectations of each holiday. But the more I delve into their true meaning and their true spirit, the more I find that the traditions that I'm currently creating with my family hold just as much importance as the ones that I was taught from my parents and grandparents. And in creating these new traditions, feel free to incorporate the old gods into each one. After all, each god had their own season and holiday and celebration typically. To do this, you might consider reading up on the different myths and legends from pantheons that speak to you. Or, as I've said before, you don't have to include any gods or goddesses in your new traditions. You can simply observe the changing of the seasons and be grateful for each blessing they bring. So I suppose that's all I have to say about that today. I hope this helps you. Just a quick reminder, if you like what I do and want to support the Mooncast, please click the like button and share this with your friends. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. And until we meet again,